Good morning. Welcome to 3-Minute Manna. It's good to see you today. It is the Gospels Wednesday. Today we're going to be looking in Luke chapter 7 at the account of the Pharisee who invited Jesus for a meal. The Lord goes with him and eats that meal. They're eating, and a woman comes in who Scripture says was a sinner. But she came in and she stood behind the Lord weeping, and then she began to wash his feet with her tears. You might remember the Pharisee named Simon says that if Jesus were truly a prophet, that he would know what sort of woman this was. The Lord goes on to tell a parable, but then we pick up the account at verse 44. Jesus turns to the woman and says to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little." Simon was filled with hate, and it is easy for Christians to be filled with hate today. We need to understand, he who hates his fellow man, he does not love the Lord. He who hates his brother and says he loves God, according to John's epistles later on, he is a liar. Simon was filled with hate towards this woman because of her sins. And Scripture says that this woman, Jesus is going to say, this woman, she is a sinner. She has sinned much. That is not an excuse for hatred. Simon, he was absolutely filled with hate. And what we understand is when we are filled with hate towards people, we are neglecting Jesus, because that's what Simon was doing. Jesus says, "You gave me no water, you gave me no kiss, you gave me no oil." All of those things were common things that the Jews would have offered house guests. He was filled with hate. As the Lord turns to the woman and says to Simon, "Do you see this woman?" Simon had been staring holes in this woman, but he hadn't truly seen her like the Lord saw her. He was neglecting Jesus the whole time because of his hatred. The Lord tells that parable about the two debtors, and the Lord asks him, he says, "Tell me therefore which of them will love him more." Simon answered and said, "I suppose the one whom he forgave more," up in verse 43. And he said to him, "You have rightly judged." Simon knew the truth. He knew the right answers. He just was not applying them to himself. He was neglecting himself. He would not examine himself. He was so busy hating this woman and so busy neglecting Jesus. Just think about that. As that aroma would fill the room, staring at this woman as she was crying, as she was sobbing and washing the Lord's feet, and all he had on his heart was hatred. An absolute neglect of the Lord, an absolute neglect of examining himself. You can tell from that last verse we read, verse 47 again, there are different qualities of love. But another interesting thing is that there are also different qualities of forgiveness. How much forgiveness would you like in your life? Right? And that's the moral of the story. Hope you enjoyed this study. God bless you. Hope to see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for studying with us.